Good morning, and today is the introduction to Microsoft Word. Word Up, Let's Format, session 3 of our series. And today we're really going to be focusing on the formatting of how Microsoft Word, when you take a document like we've done the last 2 sessions, using all of the resources together, once you get to the end of that document, we have to format it to be able to get ready to print. And today we're going to look at the views portion of the presentation. And here we go. Again, for Zoom etiquette, for everyone to hear, please stay muted if you don't have any questions at all. This presentation will be recorded for training purposes and for the future use for the public. And again, jot down any questions you have, and we will definitely go over those at the conclusion of this training. For the overview of today, again, we're talking about views, and what we're talking about is the ribbon, the views ribbon. And we will again look at that and look at some of those different aspects of what makes that ribbon very, very valuable for your document. We'll look at the formatting and look at how you can get everything ready to print. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the review tab and why it's kind of overlooked a lot of times. That is a very important part of Microsoft Word, and you're able to then use that tab to enhance it, make it better, and we'll even look at some of the cool features that you can use to really make it stand out. And then we'll touch a little bit about the print settings. And again, these are some of the things that we don't really do a whole lot of times in documents, because a lot of it's already defaulted to and basically ready to go for you to print. But if you needed to, if you had some bigger images or you had a different type of paper or something, we're going to look at how you can change those things in the print settings. So that's going to be what we're looking at today. So let's jump on in and look at how we can understand the Views tab. And what I mean by that is, if you remember at the top of the page in Microsoft Word, we had all those different views. And again, let's kind of look back here. I'm going to switch back over to my Microsoft Word document. So on the document here, we again have the Views tab. And if you remember right before in session 1 and 2, we looked again at these other tabs and how they're all kind of interrelated. And they really are in a lot of ways, because you can use the basics. Your most common things are going to be in that home view, like your fonts, your sizing, again, you come to bold, italicizing, underlining. And then you also have the colors. You can also do a lot of those there. So we talked all about that before. That insert tab is being able to add pictures. You can then also put breaks into the page where you can go to a next page. The shapes, where you can do all different types of shapes and add them into your document. And there's also, even now in the new editions, they even have icons that you can see. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with that document. But again, each tab has its way of being able to incorporate into a real nice document. And then that layout one, which again, we will look more when we get to the printing part of it. We'll look at the layout a little bit more today. But again, inside here, we're going to look at views. And why that's important? Well, you can have multiple views in a document. And that, again, you see these at the top page here. And like the read mode. And again, when I switch to read mode, you can actually look at it kind of in a lot bigger format. And this, again, you can then change it back to it as well, where you can go back and edit it. All right. Also, when you're in read mode, if you wanted to hit the escape button, you could hit the escape button and then come on back as well. Print layout is the default layout when you get into Word. So this is what you'll see when you open up the document, as you just saw. And you can, again, if you wanted to get out of this format, because it's the default, it's going to be right there to start. But if you go to that web layout, like it looks like a web page all the way. So you're looking again at, it looks a lot bigger on your screen. But if you wanted to go back, you just hit escape. You can go back in here and change it back out. And so we'll go back into print layout, because this is kind of a much more what you're really going to see with that document. Whenever you put that stuff together and it gets ready to print, that's going to be what you're going to see more like, is the print layout. So again, we have those, and then you can also look at a vertical side and then side to side as well. You can put multiple documents together. If you have multiple pages, you can actually do side to side as well. And then you can add the ruler at the top. You see what you got in here. You can add ruler. So if you wanted to check your margins, this will help you with the margins as well. And then if you want grid lines, a lot of times in Word documents, you don't use a lot of grid lines. It's more in Excel, which we'll look at in October. Now that you have it available, but you're not going to really need it as much. And then you also have the navigation panel here. So if you can actually kind of see a bird's eye view of what all your documents are doing. So again, navigation is also there too. You can check that if you would like that on there. And then we have the zoom feature, which is probably the primary part of why views is so important. So if you want to get up close with your document, you can do that. Currently, it defaults to 100%, which you would pretty much assume that whenever you get in there, you want it to be exactly right at where it's just comfortable to be able to read. But if you wanted to go even further and get closer, you could. So we can get up really close if we want, 200%. Or if the default, like you said, is the 100, so you could actually click on this and it'll take it right back for you. And then on Zoom too, you can also do your own if you like as well. You can actually custom do it. So if you wanted to, if you want to do 87%, you can put that in there and it'll take it to 87%. So again, lots of great things here with View. The zooming is a really nice feature in View. So just remember, if you're wanting to view something and get it closer, this is your tab. This is where you want to come. And then the ribbon again has so many different features as well. And then also you can do split screens as well. So look at that. You can actually take part of your document and split the screen if you have a lot of information. And again, you can take it up there and make it 2 documents. To take that off, you see where it says remove split. We can remove it and it'll go right back to where we were before. So those are really good things. But again, that's how we're looking at the view. Again, we talked a little bit the last time about, when we did formatting, we touched base a little bit about that, but we also kind of created that document. So we had Word up as the title. So we did that because we went back to the home screen and we adjusted a few things on our document. And when we highlight this stuff, we can and what's so nice too is when you do highlight something in these newer versions, it brings up a miniature little font and sizing and color. So you have that. You can also do it right here instead of having to go up to the main menu. That's kind of a neat little feature. So that's what in the newer versions, 2016 and beyond. A lot of these things you'll have it right here after you highlight it because they know you're going to want to change something. So they brought it a little bit closer. Very, very nice feature. But again, you can format all these things with the home tab. And then in View, we can actually get bigger and smaller and change the way you want to look at it while you're getting it ready to present. So again, that's how we've kind of looked at the View tab. Kind of wanted to go through that a little bit right at the beginning. And again, which one is right for me? Well, a lot of times that print layout view is actually the best, but now we've seen that we can go in there and change it up. That's okay. There's no right or wrong, but you always know that when you come up here on the View tab, and if you come up to the 100%, it will take you right back to where it defaults to in Microsoft Word. Okay. So now let me go ahead and switch back to the presentation real quick. Let me get back in here. Here we go. Okay. So again, which view was right for me? Well, we kind of looked through all of that, and each one of those has its own way of its own view, and you're able to then determine which one you like best. And again, that zoom and all of those, you can actually define it yourself at whatever % you feel comfortable as well. So that's what we have, and it is important to get in the environment that you really feel comfortable with to create that document. All right, let's go on to the next slide here. And then, like you said, if you go into a particular view, you can always hit the escape button. That will take you back from the previous view. It'll go back to where you were and back to your default. And again, with those views and that zoom feature are really nice in the views portion. So just to kind of keep that in mind. Let's look at formatting, okay? Formatting your document for print. And again, we're going to go back to the layout tab. And again, we touched this a little bit in one of the previous sessions. And this is a very important actual tab because when you're getting ready to print, a lot of things, sometimes you want it in a certain way. And this is where you will come for the orientation of that document, and again, orientation is going to be either portrait or landscape. You'll see that in there. You see that right here on the top menu. So you have some choices when you get down to it. Again, the documents are pre-formatted for printing. However, you can change them at any time. And again, you have your margins, you have a spacing. A lot of those things are all available to you. So again, let's look again when we go back in here into our document. And where are we here? There we are. Okay, so again, in our document, we have the layouts tab. So let's go over to layouts. And in the margins here, when you do margins, you can adjust these. They are, like, again, there's a default setting for these when you do margins. Now, you look right here and you look at normal, okay? I've highlighted the normal. And that right there is your default, okay? Normal settings are gonna be an inch, basically, for each of those. They're basically gonna be on an inch on each on the top, the left, the bottom, and the right, okay? You can also do a narrow one as well. All right, you see how it moved. So again, on the tab, we went to narrow. Now it's a half an inch on each side. Okay, up on the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. And then you can adjust your left and right a little bit more if you wanted to. And again, on here you have in the margins, we did the moderate one, which again left the top and the bottom at an inch. And then it brought down to 3/4 of an inch on the left and the right side. And then wide. So we got wider margins. So it looks more of like a book, if you think about it. If you look, it looks like a book page. So the margins have been expanded on the outsides. And on this one, the wide one, so you again have an inch on the top and the bottom, as you can see right here. And then on your left hand side, went to 2 inches. So now they've actually pushed into your document quite a bit more. So now you kind of got the idea that these again, you can adjust these margins very, very nicely. However, it depends on what kind of document you're doing. Sometimes you won't even need to touch these. But if you needed to adjust the margins, this is where you come to. And you can then adjust these, this will be what it is normally, just like we saw before. And you can change them just right here in this menu. And then we talk about orientation. Now, a lot of times these documents they're defaulted to go into portrait style. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you want all the time. It could be on this particular project, but in the end, you want to also make sure that you have it what you want. I could change it to landscape if I wanted to. Now you see it has now expanded, and it's now where you can do it as like a more of a landscape photo. And when you print it, it's going to go kind of in a rectangular versus what's going to go up and down in like a square. So again, there's your portrait and then there's your landscape. And we're going to stick with portrait for now, but that's where you can change the orientation inside the document. And then you got the size. Now, a lot of the sizing and stuff, you have so many different types of paper that you can print on. And your default setting is your letter type paper, your 8.5 inch by 11 inch. And those are, again, one of the things that you want to make sure that if you're doing anything, a special document of a poster you can do legal size too, now it's all preset to do legal. So when they highlight that, the little gray box comes up there as what you want. But it's going to always default to letter unless you tell it differently. So again, sizing, that's again, you have all these different things. If you have a particular measurement, you can even, I believe that they can come on here and you can do a custom as well. You can do more paper sizes on here. And again, a lot of these things, you can change it to your own preference as well on the paper size. But again, in the page setup, this is again, the same things that you saw up here. This is what we call that. Remember that launch button that we went to? This is when we went further into it, we went to that little launch button and that brought up the page setup. And page setup, you see, is a lot of the similar things. It's just expanded now. And that's where we want to make sure that when you do go in there, you're looking at a lot of the same stuff. It just gives you more choices to what you want to select. So again, that's what we're looking at in here. You have, again, that launch button gives you more options in the page setup. And like you said, we have a launch button for a paragraph. Now, we also can do bigger indentions if you wanted to. Say, for instance, I wanted to do this line right here, and I wanted to increase the indentation. See that? From the left side, I want to go in. It was at 0, now I went to 1/2 inch over to the right. And from the left side over to the right. That's the other thing I wanted to identify. And again, that's where you see from the left side, I went in a 1/2 inch, and that's what happened right here. That's what you just saw right here. All right. If on this line I wanted to go, from that from the right, I could then take it back. And again, since we're already all the way across here, it won't adjust because we have a lot of text already. But when you do an indentation, you're usually going to go to the right, from the left to the right. So that's why in this case it didn't go through. And then again, spacing. Now I showed on here that one of the things that was very, very cool about Word is that it give you, when you hit the enter button, it actually will hit down 2 spaces for you. So when I hit the enter button, it did a space here and a space here. I actually moved it up a little bit, so that's why I did 1 space. But a lot of times, if you're doing something in particular, you can then go in and it'll usually hit an enter twice for you. All right, because it goes from 1 line to another. But here's the other kicker. You look at the page here, we will also look at doing, if you hit the shift button, the little button under the caps lock here on the left side of your keyboard, if you hit the shift button and then hit the enter, it will take you down 1 line. Okay, before there was an actual space in between. So now we can actually go 1 line down. So that shift and enter will take you 1 line, and then the enter will actually do a double. It's kind of like a 1.5 almost. So again, you can see, you see that when I did that part, I did enter, and that brought me down here. Now look again when we get back up here to right next to the exclamation point on cool. This time I'm going to hit shift enter. Now watch this. You see that space now is a lot less. So now it's 1 line. It's kind of like a 1.5 whenever I hit the enter button. But there is a difference. So if you want to just go exactly 1 line under, you can hit shift enter and it will do that for you. If you like the general enter, which is a space and a half, you can then do that. And that is available to you. So that's also what's a nice little shortcut for on the spacing part. You can use the shift enter to do 1 line and enter to do a 1.5. So kind of keep that in mind. I think I took my eye away. There we go. So again, this is how you can do that. We're going to bring these indentations back real quick. And then I'm also going to bring this one back. Okay. So again, you've seen line indentations, and you also saw the spacing, how that works. And again, you can increase the spacing on some of these as well. And I can bring it back down a little bit from the top. Before that, you can actually bring down to 30 point. And again, you can bring these back as well. So again, you have different ways of doing spacing in here as well. Now, for instance, I wanted to do, you'll also see in here that there's a lot of other, in the layouts, you can actually do things with pictures as well. So that's also a pretty neat thing to do. And in the end, again, this is where you can update. You can put line numbers as well. Just some other things we won't really touch on a whole lot because it's not used all the time, but they're here. And there's several videos that you could probably find on how to do additional things in the layout tab. But again, that's how the layouts are kind of working out. That's how you can format your printing to do that. Okay, let me head back to the presentation. We'll continue on with our show here. All right, so layouts and orientation, we just went through that. Again, we talked again about that launch button. You remember when we got on there, we looked at the bottom of the page, and we in that group part of it where, especially like in the page setup, that's what we looked at here. You can expand that menu. So again, the launch button at the bottom of each group will drill further to allow you to change your settings. Very, very important, because what you see there on that ribbon is not everything that's there. You can get more stuff, but you do have to drill a little bit further on that launch button, and that'll give you the full page setup menu. And again, you have other tabs up here like paper and layout. A lot of those will continue to do that. We see the orientation again. Again, in that expanded menu, it's the same stuff that you saw at that top, but now it's expanded a little bit more, so you have a lot more options to work with in Word. Very, very important tools that you can use for your presentation. Okay, so now we're going to drop into Review tab. And the Review tab does have a lot of different parts. We're just going to highlight a few things today that you sometimes overlook whenever you do a document. And it is a very important piece of Microsoft Word in the fact that you're going to have things like spell check and all that stuff in there. And it's very, very important for a good quality product to use that tab. So let's look at that right now. This review tab, you're going to see that again right at the top here. And now we have moved over now. We're moved to the left at this time from the viewpoint, but we're back in review. And a lot of times when you do documents, you will type a bunch of stuff on there. Sometimes it'll give you those little squiggly lines and tell you, maybe that's not necessarily how it's spelled, or maybe it's not exactly how the sentence structure is probably not right, the grammar. Maybe it's a little bit off. Well, these review tabs give you that ability to run that through your document. It basically will do what they, excuse me, it'll do exactly a search through the document, and it will find those things for you. So again, and then a lot of times whenever you're doing a document, it's important to do spell check, as we all know. That's very, very important to have, complete words that spell correctly. We can do that all here in the review tab. So checking your spelling and then making sure the edit, all that's getting edited through this tab. You can also add comments too, and we can also translate a lot of the information to other languages too. Because you'll see in here, we've got the spelling and grammar, we got a thesaurus. We can even get a word count. So we can, if there's criteria for maybe a project that you're working on, and they said that you can only have no more than 1,000 words in this project, you can actually do a word count in here. You can highlight the whole document and select all, and then you can do a word count. And there's lots of videos on that out there, but that's one of the things that you will find in the review tab that are very, very helpful to get a number of how many words you've got. Sometimes they require those in certain projects. So that is a nice little tool that you'll have in there. And then again, you can translate information in the language of that. You can do all of that in here, review tab. And then this is also the nice little part. You can actually make comments and stuff in here too. Let me show you a little bit about that now. And we're going to jump into comments just a little bit here. So let me switch over back to our document. All right. So now we're back to our document, and we are now we're going to go back over here to review. All right. And for instance, I want to highlight this line here, and I can then show comments. And actually I didn't have a comment, so I need to make a new comment. See what it does now, you can actually, if you're editing for somebody, you can actually start making changes to this, and it's really helpful when you're trying to get it concise and get information and have feedback from others. And so on this one, I'm making comment on my own stuff, but you can also do that with another friend or somebody if you wanted them to have them look it over, and then you can send this back and have the comments on there, just so you can make the changes and save it as another document. So again, everything on this line is cool. And I could say, I like that line. I could have put reply. Okay. So now I've now made a comment on there, and it's now showing the comments. I can turn those off at any time. But when on here, I can go on here and go to my comments, and it will highlight exactly what line we actually made a comment on. So now you can see how comments work. And then you can track changes as well. A lot of those things too. Let me get off the comments real quick. So yeah, and then it also puts a nice little bubble there, so you can see that the comments are there, but it just won't show it, inside the document, in this mode. And then you put track changes on, and again, we can then add that on like that. And now at this point, you see the red just come on. So when I turn that on, that allows you to go in, anything that you do after that point, it will track it now. So your original document basically stays intact. But now if you wanted to put in here, like, I need to space this a little bit better. This is something new, and I'm just, I can track changes here as well. But just to show you, though, when you look at that, there's going to be a marking on the document that tells you that this is new information that was not in there previously. And again, that's how you can track changes. And with that, you can turn it on, turn it off. And I'm basically going to go all the way back here. Oops. Keyboard and all. There we go. All right. So there, you can do track changes as well. And then if you're having somebody else proof it for you, you can have them accept it or reject it, and those kind of things are in there as well. I would be very careful with this one, though. You can lock the document if you want to. You can restrict editing if it's something that's going to be like a major paper or something that you're proud of, and you don't, in case somebody got it, not to make any changes to it. Just be very careful because you can restrict that. But if you do put a password on it, make sure you write that down, because if not, your document it's going to be very hard to get back into it if you don't have the password. A lot of times though, they do ask for one, so be very careful when you do that. But you can restrict documents if you like to. But again, you're seeing in here that there's a lot of different tools that allow you to help make that document better. You can, again, look at those spellings. And then on here, like we looked at the spelling on here. So I want to go on and do a spell check on this. Well, it looks like everything was good. Now, for instance, I wanted to put something in here. It's like this or something. And now I do a spell check, and now it's going to ask me in the editor, what is this? And yeah, I just put some stuff on the page, so it's obviously going to pick that up. But really, this doesn't have anything in here. And I meant to say staff. I was like, oh, okay. So if I like staff, I can actually tap that, and it'll change it. And now it's gone back to complete. So you want to do a spell check if you're doing a real nice document that's going to be going out to other people, or even sometimes like an email too. You can do spell checks on these documents and make sure it actually flows well, the grammar's correct, and if you have any spelling issues, it'll help you. It's kind of that knowledge base. It will give you they'll try to give you the right one for that reason. So it's very, very important stuff on that. So again, that was your review tab. That's, again, very, very important features in this. All right, let me go back. Let's get back to the presentation real quick. All right, so review tab, we went through that now. Now let's look at the print settings. We're kind of wrapping up here on the end. So looking at print settings. Now in Word, to wrap up, all the print settings are customizable. These things, you can change the settings however you wish. Again, there are a lot of default settings that go with it. You can make most of these changes through the main print button that you're going to see up here. Now, right here, I gave you kind of an example of how on the main part of the menu, in the file menu, this is what you'll come to. You go file print, and it brings you up this print button here. And you can again make the changes in here. Like we saw, you can if whatever default printer you've got for your computer, it should pop up right here. If not, you can drop into this menu and find it, and it should say ready just like it does here. And then if you only want to print certain pages of your document, you can change print all pages and make it where it says just one page. You basically go see one page of it. And we'll look at it live in just a second. Collated, you can also make it where it goes in order or it doesn't go in order. If you remember, we talked about the orientation. It comes up as portrait as the default. You can change it if you like, but again, these are the default settings that you will see inside the print settings. That normal margins we saw, the letter space, the letter type of documents, 8.5 by 11. And then we want to make sure it's one page per sheet. That's correct. So again, those are the kind of things you'll see in the print settings. And then also remember too, like we kind of went in there, I gave you a couple of examples about that as well. So again, you do have options. Everything on here is customizable to however you want it to look. But do remember though that each of these menus, you can change those settings. I kind of showed you just a small little piece of that right here. You do have the orientation where you can switch between the two. You have the collated versus uncollated. And again, you can see it go in order, or you can see it just go, page 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. If you're printing multiple pages, you can have all the page 1s go all together, all the page 2s go together, and 3, and so on. Or you can have it as a packet. you want all of the pages just like you put it together to print just like that too. And that's usually the most common is you want to have page 1, 2, and 3 come together as a packet. So very, very important. You can see those kind of things inside the print settings. And again, a little bit more stuff on here as well. But again, all of this is customizable. All right, so before we go into the review, let's go back one more time and look at the print settings. Let me go back to our document. Okay, so now in the document here, we're going to go on back to the file. Let me do that. Print. Okay, and in here, we do have those comments. Let me go back here real quick. And I'm going to actually, let's actually turn off the comments here. I'll just delete them for a bit. So now you saw the comments, but if you don't need them, you can actually take them out there by deleting them off your page if it's not necessary. But again, in here, file to print, you can then, just like I showed you, all of these are the default settings, but you can change them. It gives you an idea of what it looks like right there before you print. If you needed to know how many copies you need, you can change that number up here, just like that. It's going to default to just 1 copy. And then again, your print stuff on here, you have your list of printers, the amount of pages. You can just print the current page, which we only have 1, so you don't have to necessarily change that if it's just 1 page, because that's the whole thing is just 1 page right now. And then the collated versus uncollated, again, portrait orientation, and then all of these other ones, the letter, normal margins, 1 page per sheet. Exactly right. So again, those are very, very important steps on that. So then you look at it, and you can go back in here to the document, and a lot of this stuff, again, it's really pretty basic. And a lot of Word is just sticking to the defaults, but we want to make sure that you get to see all of these different aspects of this particular views, the layout, and then the printing, because that's for all the formatting that goes into it. That you want to make sure your document looks superb and ready to present. So that's how the printing will work as well. But all of these things are linked together. You can then see all that. And like we said in the views, we can get all of these things in whatever windows we want, and go back and we can focus in on stuff, and then we can zoom in, zoom out. If we have multiple pages on here, like say for instance we had 3 or 4 pages, we can turn these into a multiple page view as well. And what I mean by that is that, and just want to real quickly show you, we can then, if we wanted to take this, I went and entered this here, I can then go on here back over here to our layout, and I think breaks, was it? Yeah. I could put a page break in here. And you saw how the pages move downward, so that's also very important. And I can see page 2 here. And I'm going to do one more break, make it page 3. Very, very good here. So now we got 3 pages on here. And again, in the views tab, we saw on here that there was multiple options for things. You can have a multiple page view where it brings up this part where you can look at page 1 and page 2 together. And then page 3 is right down below here. And then again, the multiple page view is nice. If you want to go back there, just hit it back to 1 page. So again, all of these are very, very valuable things for you. Okay, let me get back here to the presentation. We're going to wrap it up here. Okay, so and in review today, we now have an understanding of how the view tab works. And again, each of those things that we went through are just other elements that make your document even better. You can again get a little bit closer to the text and to see what you're doing, or you can go in and then you can change the viewpoints of, like what we saw, the 1 page versus multiple page. A lot of those things are available. And then we also reviewed how to format the document, for the printing. We again going through the review tab and spell checks, and then also and then when you look in here on that stuff, you want to make sure that everything is nice and neat and ready to go. So spelling and grammar is very important. And then they also have that thesaurus on there too, where you can also check for the different uses of the words. So again, you have that available. And then that review tab, again, it's so important. A lot of people do overlook it, and it is a great resource, especially if you're wanting to check at your work and make sure it's nice and complete and there's no run-on sentences and things on that nature. So again, keep that in mind when you use the review tab. This is an important one, so you don't overlook it. And then we went through those print settings briefly and how, the orientation versus margins. Those kind of things are important too. Before you get ready to print, make sure you have those in place to put that together. Very, very good. But we went through a lot though in that time. But now we've gotten to questions and comments. Again, if you like to have any questions that you've jotted at this time, please go ahead, and if you'd like to unmute, you're welcome to do so, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. But we are at the conclusion of this training. If you have no further questions though, and thanks for attending. Well, please sound off if you have anything you'd like to add.